All right, so we're in. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm not bad. I'm not bad. I'm excited for the long weekend, right? We're getting close to a little bit of a holiday here, so people are already starting to mentally imagine that they're on, some kind of break.
Yeah, I don't know. I never feel like there's a break with the holidays here.
Yeah, because people are just working right through it all the time.
America.
It's America. And you can actually say that because you've lived abroad, which is so nice. But how's the year going for you already?
Pretty well. It's a very exciting year.
Yeah.
Started with a nice break in London and Barcelona. And now back with my short film project, which got into a couple of festivals in LA. So I'm very excited about that.
That is exciting. Yeah. I mean, to be able to travel. I mean, I've had quite a lot of people on the podcast about who are in the entertainment industry, and they were just like, man, like COVID was really rough. And then last year with the strikes was terrible. And it's like 2024 is going to be the year.
Yes, every year we're like, oh, this is the year.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think a lot of people took the opportunity of 2023 and the strikes to create their own project.
Yeah. Is that what you got up to?
Yeah, but that was before the strike.
Okay.
I started last year with the short film project.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, we'll get into that. But so where are you from originally?
France. I grew up in the south of France, but I lived in lots of different places because my mother is Spanish originally. So we always went to Spain, Barcelona for the holidays, and then my dad is Algerian originally. So we always traveled, and my mother used to teach English and had a love for England. So we were always camping in England, which I do not recommend.
Camping in England sounds tough.
It is.
But that's
very.
Yeah.
Never did it again.
That's interesting though. So I mean, it's so nice. I think Europe is like a great place to kind of grow up because you get to touch so many different cultures, histories, languages. I feel like it can be quite a lovely, ecosystem for someone to go through their teens and 20s, and because there's a lot of different variety and all the countries are very, very different and lovely.
Yeah, it's very rich. I mean, when you love traveling and you change cultures without having to go too far, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But then I feel like in America, it's kind of the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of difference between like Florida and Utah.
Right.
If you can accept the nuances of the United States, then yes, the United States of America is actually more diverse than probably all of Western Europe.
Right.
And so where did you go to school in all those different countries? Where did you end up like really growing up?
In the south of France, and up until I was 20, and then I was an exchange student in Texas for a year. And that was an experience.
How did you, what program were you studying in school where you ended up in Texas?
I think it was called ISEP.
Okay.
I mean, that was a long time ago, but yes. But it was a great program. I got to go to a private university north of Austin, Southwestern University for a year. And I met a lot of amazing people.
Yeah.
And lived on campus. That was an experience.
So, I mean, what were you studying back then? I mean, does France even have degrees for people who are, into filmmaking and storytelling?
I wasn't at the time.
Oh.
I mean, I grew up devouring books, really, a lot of British literature. So, and I knew I wanted to be an actress, but I was really scared, and it took me forever to go for it. So I actually studied English and American literature and civilization, and did a master's degree in English about what was it about? It was so long ago. Self-identity of Mexican self-identity in the southern states of America. That was my topic.
Oh, well, that's very interesting and,
Right.
and quite poignant for these days that we're living in now, right? With all these people coming across the border.
Yeah, and I guess when you're a mixture of culture as well, I grew up with like being open to lots of different cultures, and it's a different process to find your own identity, and you relate to several cultures and countries in the end. So yeah, that was a way for me to explore that.
Right, because you had the French culture, the Algerian culture, the Spanish culture, and then your mom was obsessed with England.
Obsessed, I wouldn't say that, but passionate about England, yes.
Passionate enough to make you camping in the cold, rainy England weather.
Scotland.
Oh my God. That's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were studying all this stuff. I mean, and then you came to Texas because of the Mexican Identity Project.
No, but well, kind of. I already had an idea. I wanted to do something, explore cultural identities in the States, but wasn't sure how, when, where. And so the Texas experience led to the master's degree.
Oh,
yes.
Texas is wonderful. It's huge and diverse and pretty spectacular.
Yes. Didn't see that too much because I was on campus without a car north of Austin in a small town, very typical of Texas called Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
And but there were a lot of international students and people coming from all over the States, really. So it was very enriching. And that's where I started acting, actually. Tried a little acting class and dance class. So I love dancing.
That's interesting. So Texas kind of brought you into this new idea of who you might be as a...
Yeah, it's really interesting about America because whenever I forgot about that, but whenever I came to America originally first in Texas and then in California, I was really inspired by the cultural diversity and the fact that I could explore things. So there's an energy in America that pushes you to do things. It's part of the culture again.
I think it is. I think there's something very free about being here, and there's something like, you can do whatever you want and have that kind of, that idea that there's freedom here and you can try to do things and fail without any repercussions, whereas maybe Europe is a little bit more stuck in its ways.
Yeah, in a way, yes. I mean, you always have, people travel more and more now, so... But there's a bit of that going on. Yeah.
I lived in Switzerland off and on for the last few years, and that's a place where things are quite rigid, and trying things and failing, or being an entrepreneur and having it not work out. Like, these things are very scary for the Swiss, right? But doing it in America, people start companies, go bankrupt, go do IPOs. You have no idea what's going on. It's just constant chaos here. It's quite exciting.
It's up and down for sure. I saw that, happening quite a bit.
So you came over to Texas during your university days, and then that prompted you to take dance and acting classes.
Yes, it did actually. And when I came back to France, I continued, but at a small level, just starting off.
Yeah.
Yes, but it definitely had a big impact on me.
And was your interest like, being a theater actor or dancer, or did you want to be in movies? I mean, did you even have that idea?
Theater. I started with theater. I loved theater, but then I quickly was interested in movies. But mostly it's complicated because I moved a lot. So because when I went to London, because after I came back to France, I did my master's degree, and then I went to England for 5 years. And that's where I started acting more seriously. And that was more a stage.
Yeah. Yeah, England has great stage culture, right? They got the West End. And
it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so did you... I'm just trying to figure out, like, where along this journey you decided to try to do this professionally, or whether you were kind of an amateur having fun with it.
No, I really wanted to do it professionally, but it's just, life happens.
Yes.
And so it's always been tricky for me to find a way to pursue that. So it took steps. And after a few years in England, that's where I started a bit more seriously. And then I moved back to France because I thought that would be a better place for me to pursue it professionally, and went to acting school.
Mm-hmm. What's the like the movie making environment in France like? I mean, it's obviously not. Is it? Because like London and the UK, I guess, has been huge in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Because they've done all the Star Wars movies there and Game of Thrones and all this craziness. But what was it like? Maybe before that, like, was France maybe a more developed film industry than the UK?
Well, France functions, the movie industry is very different. I would say in France, it's better to know a lot of people, more so than anywhere else I've experienced, I think. But I didn't get to work much as an actress. I was training mostly. It was challenging, and it's not until I moved to LA that I was able to start getting some work and train a bit more and start working basically.
And what prompted the move to LA?
Oh man,
We're unpacking all this. If we're, this is exciting.
musician.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Okay. Yeah, life moves in mysterious ways.
Yeah. I definitely fell out of love with him very quickly, but fell in love with LA because of the energy and the to me America is about like possibilities. It's always given me a kick, basically.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And when you see other people around, trying to do things, hustling, trying to create things, it also inspires you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny, like how many people have moved to LA as a couple and then like within a year or two just kind of gone their separate ways and then they just decided to stay and have a career.
Yeah, I mean, LA is not known to be the best place for couples anyway.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. So the great thing about doing a podcast in LA is, and for me, one of the most entertaining parts of doing this is learning everyone's story of how they came to LA.
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't had one podcast where someone was born and raised in LA.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Do you choose the podcasts accordingly?
No, I don't choose them at all. Like I just want to meet interesting people and hear their stories about how they got into the creative industry and how they started storytelling and what their current projects are and things like that. But I don't really pick and choose, but it's amazing because everyone's come from somewhere else and whether I came from Dubai, here randomly, but other people come from Colorado to LA and it's like a big deal, but it's only like an hour flight. So, and you've come from Europe, so everyone has these different perspectives of what America meant and then how they ended up in LA and why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Where are you from?
So originally I'm from Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. Grew up like in a little suburb called Oakville, and then moved to the city and went to University of Toronto and stuff like that. And then I moved to China right when I graduated, and I was in China for 18 years. Yeah. Have you ever been to China?
No.
It's a different beast. But also has a big entertainment industry as well, obviously.
Yes, I mean it's grown incredibly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty interesting space, but I think it's going to have a lot of difficulty kind of getting itself back into some sense of normality after this COVID lockdown where they were kind of locked up for 3 years and pissed a lot of people off and destroyed a lot of industries and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting like the next 2 or 3 years how they recover.
Yeah, but they still invest quite a lot in movies and come to look for talent sometimes here.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, the Chinese and the Korean film industries are definitely spending money. Yeah, and I think the Koreans are probably a little bit on the higher quality side. They've had a lot of really great series on Netflix and stuff like that. The Chinese haven't really broken through, but they're making a lot of movies for their domestic audience that don't make it, into America. But they have a massive theater system there, and it's quite successful. They've had a lot of like big projects. Yeah. So when you came to LA for love, and then you
Makes me laugh now.
it's always the past romantic failures are always funny. But and then how long was it from when you touched down to when you started working?
Oh, it was a couple of years, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yes, it was difficult. Yeah, just had a really unfortunate adventure with a psychic, so that left me with nothing, basically, to sum it up. I won't get into it,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it's one of those LA experiences. I mean, so I had to recover from that, and also because I ended up knowing no one, literally. So it took time to find my bearings and yeah.
LA is definitely about like as a town where you need to know people.
Well, it's better.
It's better to
You
know.
have an easier experience if you have your support system, that's for sure.
I mean, what was it? What did it feel like coming in as an actress, with a foreign background, with an accent, speaking multiple languages?
Yeah.
Was that like a hindrance, or was it something that helped?
No, it didn't help at all at the beginning. I mean, now the industry is a lot more open with Netflix and all these streamers producing international content.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it was really tough. And whenever I did a casting director workshop to get to meet the casting directors, they were like, "Oh, great, to work on your American accent."
Yeah, really, they
Yes,
said
to
that.
the point that I heard it so much systematically that I did a short film called "I'm Not an Accent" because it was just. And whenever they told me that, then I told them, "Oh, watch my film."
That's interesting, isn't it? How many years ago was that?
That was 12 years ago, 13 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the landscape of storytelling has become much more international since then, isn't it?
Oh, yes, a lot. I mean, I went back to Paris a few years back, and when I came back, that's when I saw the difference. Like, nobody has told me, "Oh, you work on your accent," but I do think it stops me from getting work, that's for sure.
Americans definitely prefer watching Americans do things on a big screen.
There's no doubt. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the way it is.
Mm.
Yeah.
And like coming to LA, getting yourself situated over the first few years, like how were you ever able to get representation? Were you ever able to?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I still do. Representation was never really an issue, but then getting the auditions has always been.
Right.
But then when I came back after a few years in Paris, because I tried to, like, obviously learn from my first experience in LA, so I went back to speaking Spanish, which I had left alone a little bit. So I got back to, so I'm pretty fluent in Spanish now. So the minute I put fluent in Spanish, I started getting major auditions.
Oh,
Not many, but it made a huge difference.
really? For Spanish speaking movies?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And TV shows. Yeah, I was really surprised.
Is there a lot of Spanish speaking content being made in the US for Spanish speaking people in the US, or was it being made for people in Central and South America?
No, in the US.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Oh, I'm totally unaware.
Yes, it's huge. Commercials. I mean, you probably see commercials in Spanish sometimes, no?
I don't watch TV much.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. They're out there. I watch Telemundos, particularly by my Spanish, and I see a lot of, obviously, they produce a lot of Spanish speaking content. But otherwise, there were TV shows in Mexico, but also here. Yeah.
So enough work to keep you busy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. And like I'm curious what your relationship with like social media has been during this time.
Oh my goodness, I'm horrible with social media.
Yeah.
I just, I dare say I'm pretty genuine in the way I am, and it's hard for me to be otherwise. And just displaying my life, personal or otherwise, like when I go out, like I just,
Yeah.
I struggle.
It's okay though. There's enough pictures of what people have for dinner, out in the internet
Yeah.
space. It's pretty terrible.
I can't do that.
Yeah. It's funny because one of my friends was he's an actor here too, and he because the time between roles when he would get jobs was like so great that he started really building up his like social media following and making a lot of short stories and short content. Yeah. And now he's making more money doing that than he did ever doing acting, right?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, if it suits you, go for it. Hey, seriously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, what kind of roles were you looking at when you first came into the United States and you started working? I mean, what kinds of stuff were you able to?
Start working, you just want any part, really. But I ended up mostly doing voice work in French. I worked for NBC Universal E News doing the French show. We translated the show that I produced occasionally as well, and recorded the narrative in French. So I did a lot of that, and otherwise I started creating my own content. And since I was teaching as well to earn a living, I created a web series called Oh La La Hollywood Speaks French, and all French-speaking actors. Native and non-native, and it was just a little story of two sisters in LA and their friends, and so that was a way for me to combine the teaching and the acting, because the whole show was fiction, but it was based on a pedagogical progression, so people could learn and have a laugh.
That's interesting. So So as a way of kind of dealing with the downtime and dealing with all these auditions that you just decided to make your own little short film,
That wasn't a short film. That was a web series.
web series.
And then I created videos like that. That's how I could use social media, because to me it was useful to people. So and it was fun.
And what's the French-speaking community like in Hollywood? I mean, are there a lot of French-speaking actors, native French-speaking actors here?
No many.
Because I know there's a lot of Canadians, and we all
Yes.
speak a little bit of terrible French, but it's nothing.
Always terrible.
The Quebecois French is pretty bad, but it's not quite like the Parisian French or something like that.
Well, it's only a matter of perspective. Relative.
But are there? But what is the community like here? Is it small?
I don't really know the French acting community, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you would have had to know some of them if they were in your web series.
Yes, they were Canadians. Yes, at the time. Now, I used to be a lot more involved with the French community. The magazine French Morning sponsored my web series, and then the French community they were really integrated in the English-speaking community. I mean, it's
It's an English-speaking entertainment landscape for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's great. It's great that you were able to pick up so much work in Spanish, and that
Well, not so much in Spanish. I auditioned a lot in Spanish, but didn't pick up so much work. But mostly in French, really. All the work I did here was mostly in French.
It's interesting because you're the first person I've chatted with who's been able to come to the U.S. and like work in multiple languages. Because most of the people I get to talk to are, born and raised American and don't really have any other language skills. So
But it's not more useful, honestly, for the industry. It's better.
It's better to speak just English with an American accent than
Definitely.
7 other languages.
I think so. I mean, if you have 7 other languages, great. But I don't. 2 is not enough.
So this web series that you created, I mean, how did that spin into like further work? Like, did you start to realize that you had some talent or some passion for like producing and directing and putting projects together? Because I know we're building up to where you are now, right? Like with your feature, with your
Yes, it was actually producing and even directing. Directing was harder, but producing came easily because I did so many different jobs, and I used to work in tourism in London and created. I worked as a tour guide, but also created tours, like the programs. So I was used to organizing, because producing is really organizing and
logistics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And knowing how to handle stress and solving crises.
I had a wild ride in 2019. I produced 10 episodes of television for Discovery. We did 10 expeditions in 10 countries in 10 months.
Wow.
So we were 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for 10 months doing 2-week-long expeditions, either climbing mountains or walking across deserts. And I produced and directed the whole thing. So, and the permits, the visas, this was all like through Asia. We were in Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, like China. We were all over the place, and it was insane. But I love it.
That's the thing. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah.
The adrenaline.
I think for me, for producing, I love to plan it, and then when it gets executed the way I planned it, I don't know, there's a sense of accomplishment that is very rare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Doesn't come across in a lot of other like industries or with a lot of other work.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the creative process. Anything that you create is really exciting. I mean, at school, I used to love that class where we used to make things with cardboard and glue, and just having the finished product when you started out of something that looked like nothing. So it's the same feeling with the movie making.
Yeah, it is. The creative process is the same.
Yes, kind of. Yeah.
So how hard was it to put together a web series and then use that to get more work or to put new projects together?
See, I'm good at creating things, but not necessarily at maximizing like how to use it to get more work is not what I'm really good at.
This is so hard, and especially in this town too, because like everyone just wants to know what your last project was,
Yeah.
project was. Yeah.
Mm. But in this case, work came. It was more like I got to meet really great people who saw the TV, the web series, and it went a bit viral, which was unusual for an educational web series. So that was great, and people reached out to me. So, yeah, I ended up doing more videos to teach French, but also I got sponsored to do like specific content as well for a couple of schools, things like that. It was not like the making fiction, like, which is what I really love doing, but it was a good compromise.
Mm-hmm. And when were you able to now kind of transition into your new role of actually making like movies?
Well, I can't say that I'm making movies one after the other,
No.
but I after the I did the short film before the web series.
Oh.
So, and it always helps when you have content out there. So that's how I managed probably to get sponsored to do the web series. And then I didn't do anything because then I went back to France, worked quite a bit more as an actress there, doing commercials, industrial videos, and a film and TV show. Yeah, so I lost track of what I was saying.
Oh, it's okay. It's interesting though that you were going back and forth between Hollywood and France.
Well, I went back because because of that accent thing. And when you're gonna laugh, but when I went back to France, they were like, "Oh, where are you from? You have an accent." Because I had intonations that came from the English language.
So even when you went back to France,
Yeah.
they were upset that your French accent wasn't French enough.
Exactly. It wasn't standard enough. It disappeared after a while there, but yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think everyone just needs to accept that we're all living more internationally, right? And the accents are going to start sliding around, and things are going to get a little bit different.
And especially in America, I mean, people come from all over the place. So, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing because I think there's at least 2 film actresses now that are absolutely huge that don't really speak English very smoothly. One is like Ana de Armas, right? She was in the James Bond movie.
Yeah.
She's from Cuba.
Yeah.
And apparently like 4 years ago, she didn't even speak English at all. So she learned it quite quickly, which is impressive. But she's a huge star with a massive accent. And then who's that girl from, there's that show on Netflix called Wednesday, where it's like the Addams family, but she's like the child.
But I don't.
Yeah. I think she's Hispanic as well, and she has like a very interesting accent. So yeah, the non-English speaking people are crushing it for a lot of the international distribution, at least.
I'd say yes and no, because if you look at numbers, it's a small percentage that are crushing it, but more and more, that's for sure.
That's good.
But I think it's like actors who are in their own country, native country, who are doing shows that have an international impact, like in the French show, for example, Call My Agent. I mean, it's with Camille Cottin, the French actress who started to work in Hollywood. This is more of this is an easier way in, I'd say, because they get notoriety in their own country and internationally, and then it's a way in.
Yeah, because then when someone makes a big Hollywood film, they know that with that actress, they'll get ticket sales in France, right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Isn't it all about money in America?
Follow the money. Yes, absolutely. It's pretty interesting how people are cast these days. I actually heard like people started casting in this city based on like how many social media followers that you have, because sometimes like that'll kind of guarantee at least that some of those people will actually go and buy tickets.
Yeah, I mean, I dare hope it's not the majority. You hear, I mean, when casting directors talk, I'm not sure it's systematic. I don't think it's the majority.
Yeah, just for some.
For some.
Yeah, there'll always be people, yeah, who are just casting in that way. It's very interesting. I remember seeing this thing on this video of a very famous young actress. Like she's probably in her 20s, and she was like almost in tears. She's like, I'm a trained actress. I don't know how to do social media. Like, why am I being judged by like how many Instagram followers or TikTok followers I have? She's like, I don't know how to dance in front of the camera. I'm a professionally trained. She went to Juilliard or something like that. And she was just frustrated.
Yeah, understandably. But that's the thing in this business. You gotta handle your frustration and put it somewhere creative or something. Otherwise, you don't last. I mean,
Yeah, it can be quite hard. Okay, so you're going back and forth between LA and France. Like, which environment did you like working in better? Because not a lot of people get to travel around and actually work in various places.
well, I worked more in France, so I enjoyed that a lot. But it's just it depends on who the people are. I mean, to me, people are people. Really, I like working with people I connect well with, and it doesn't really matter what the culture is, which country it and
Yeah, as long as people are doing things creative.
creative, professionally, and are willing to take risks. Yes.
Well, that's good. Yeah, no, the risk taking is are the French filmmakers, really risk takers? I'm not too familiar.
I wouldn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
The film industry functions in very different ways in France. First of all, you have the government financing a lot of the projects, and it's a tight circle. So I think somehow it's great in a way because we keep making movies, but I'm not sure it serves creativity and risk taking much. Yeah.
And there was a huge French language series on Netflix, Lupin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was that. I think that was probably the biggest international.
Was it?
I think. Yeah, I only watched bits and pieces of it, but
Yeah, I watched the first episode.
yeah. But it's great if more stuff like that does come out.
It's great. I mean, I'm an international person, so I just love people working all over the place. So yeah.
Okay, so so then you went back to France, and then you came back to LA again.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the purpose of this return to Hollywood?
Well, I stopped working in France, so it was hard because I earned a living on also teaching, tutoring,
Mm-hmm.
and it just wasn't happening in France anymore. So I came back to LA right before the pandemic. Hooray!
And how so 2019 or early 2020?
Yeah. In September 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your thinking coming back then? Like, what did you want to try to come back here to accomplish? Was it just to get more work, or was it to try to make something on your own, one of your own projects?
First, I needed to get back on my feet, really, financially and professionally. So that's why I went back to speaking Spanish and tutored Spanish and English and French as a foreign language. And actually, the pandemic helped me in that sense because everything went online and everybody needed time, like to spend their time somehow. So I did a lot of that work and also got my own home studio to record audiobooks. And I booked a job with a publisher in New York. So I got to do that during the pandemic.
Oh, well, that would have kept you busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually very busy, but very isolated because all these jobs, you had to be alone. Like, so I came back to America and thinking, okay, I'm ready to reconnect with everybody. And things were opening up really nicely. And then boom, stopped.
And then you're just stuck in your home studio like 12 hours a day.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, it was either that or podcasting.
Right. What did you do?
What did I do? So I was in Ethiopia filming.
Oh my goodness.
When the world closed in March 2020. So I had finished filming in Asia in 2019, and my last episode was Hong Kong, and that was like December 2019. And then I remember I took some time off, and I went to Russia in January 2020 because going to Russia used to be a fun thing to do. Now you can't do it anymore or even talk about it. But I love Moscow, and to go there in the wintertime is a lot of fun. They have like all the lights and ice rink in Red Square. I like it. I mean, I've climbed Mount Elbrus, so I was always kind of a big fan of going to Russia, but not anymore. And then I was waiting for a big project in Saudi Arabia, and then there were all these like, China just closed. Italy was thinking about like closing their borders. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go to Africa because I know a lot of great guides. I know a lot of great content I can make, stories I can tell. And whatever happens in the rest of the world, like the African continent will keep open and keep pushing forward. So it was interesting because then I went to Ethiopia and the world closed and I couldn't go back to Dubai. And all the other countries like closed their borders, even to African countries as well, because the African countries stayed open. And the European countries and stuff like that were like, oh, if you stay open, you're not allowed into our, space. So then it just got difficult. So I went to Istanbul and I was there for 4 months, just hanging out, doing not much. Yeah. The work, because I was making a living. I was doing adventure television. So I needed to get on a plane to go have an adventure. And then the other thing is I was doing speaking events. And the speaking events, you need to get on a plane to go somewhere and sit in a room with other people. So I literally was like bored. Terribly, terribly bored.
Worst.
Yeah. So I would have loved to have been like locked up just doing ebooks or audiobooks or something. But yeah, no, I was just kind of in Istanbul and hanging out and wondering, when the world would open up again. Because I really only knew how to do one thing, and that was like make adventure TV. So it was a bit slow. But then I got into Europe in summer of 2020 and we filmed a little bit in Europe. But then the second lockdown in late 2020, that just killed us because we had kind of ramped up again thinking like COVID's behind us. And then the second wave in the US, it didn't really hit, but Europe really closed in like November 2020. And then we went back to Dubai and then we were just kind of there for a while, biding time.
Well, you moved around still.
Yeah. And then now that things are open and the strikes are over, it's nice to come back here and, plant a flag in LA and try to see what we can do here. Hopefully more adventure television. I'd love to start exploring the United States a little bit more.
Well, there's a lot to explore.
There is, and it's incredibly beautiful here. So I think there'll be a lot of, I've been around the United States a lot because I was born in Canada and I spent a lot of time traveling in the United States already, but to come back now with a bit of a different perspective is quite nice because I was living abroad for like 24 years.
Wow.
Yeah. 18 in Shanghai and then, like about the last 5 years in Dubai, pretty much. Yeah. Okay, so back to you. So when you came back to LA, you wanted to kind of sort yourself out. You came back just for COVID, but it was great because you were working, which is nice. When did you start to think about again making like your own film?
Oh, I'm always thinking about making.
But how did you?
How did I get back into it? Well, I had a friend and mentor, director John Amiel, who I managed to convince to co-write a project with me, and so that's where it started.
And that was during COVID?
That was after COVID.
Yeah.
Now, during COVID, I had projects I'd written in France, but I couldn't get them going. So I tried, but one is a satire of social media that I still really want to do, but more in French. So that's why I had to find an idea to do something in English. And but no, I didn't try writing or producing until when was it? 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how daunting was that to sit down and start writing in English and start trying to put together an idea?
It wasn't daunting because the process was actually more fun than when I wrote a few projects in France, for example, because I was working with John. So I love working with people. So the minute someone else is involved, it's always easier. And it's someone who has a huge experience, who's a brilliant mind, very creative. So it was very enriching for me. And so what was daunting, well, then at first I found a producer in France to take care of it, to help us with it. But then he let us down. So that's when the daunting part started, because I really wanted to do this project with John, and John agreed to direct it. So that's when I, little by little, started to put things in place, like partnerships, and started to raise money and save my own money, because money is always the the most difficult thing to find. So it took a long time.
Yeah. And what was what were you writing with John? What was the plot? What was the idea? Like, what was the vision behind the story?
Well, first, I wanted it to be a showcase piece for myself as an actress. So, and I hadn't done any drama, so we started from that, and then he mentioned some of his experience as well. So we our respective experiences kind of like we put them together to try and write a story. Um, but it ended up being very dramatic and but very creative as well. So the process was first like brainstorming, and then I would write. At the beginning, I was the one writing,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just here to give me feedback. And then he got more and more involved, and we finalized it together, and he wrote the final version. But yeah, we developed the story. We took time to develop it.
And is it a full feature or is it like a short?
Short.
Yeah. And how long? I mean, how long did it take you to write a short? Like, people see the category at the Oscars, short films and things like this, but people don't understand like just how long it takes to make something that's 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes long.
Well, if you put it all the time together, it's not that long, but we really wanted to add layers to the story and to do something meaningful. So it took a long time to mature, and also it's hard to tell, but we let it mature in over a year, probably not that long maybe, but it was on and off again. Because writing I always find writing painful. So the brainstorming part was great, but then when I had to go back and write it by myself, it was it has to do with self-confidence as well, or it goes in and it's something that's very evasive at time.
Mm-hmm.
So it came in bursts of writing, and then yeah.
I find like the rewriting process to be the most painful. So like I'll write something and then like 2 or 3 months later, maybe you go back and review that part of the thing that you put together. And then you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote this shit. Got to like scratch it all out and start again. But I think every time you do it, it does get a little bit better.
Yes, you add layers. It gets richer. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is by Ernest Hemingway, the famous American author who you obviously know because you studied American literature. But he has a great quote. He's like, writing is easy. All you have to do is sit at the typewriter and bleed. Yeah, there's some truth to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Now
I don't know. Sometimes the hardest part is to start as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the rewriting is the most daunting part to me. It depends. Because John was tough in terms of like feedback, so that was hard.
Yeah.
It really depends.
I feel like people either have difficulty starting to write, or people have an easy time just writing a lot, but not really having the quality. Like sometimes it just kind of comes out really fast and flowing, but you have to go back and check yourself because it might.
Oh, always.
Yeah. It's a real beast. Yeah, I wrote 4 books, one on each of my big adventures that I did,
Really?
and then I have 2 photography books as well that I put out from my time in China. So, like writing the forewords for those was scary because it's like, well, that's going to be in print for as long as my book is in print, and people are going to see it who love photography, and other people who don't have anything to do with photography. So I was just trying to figure out like who the audience was and how much into the process I could get.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bringing on a co-writer and a director, it was obviously a huge part for this drama. But when did you? I mean, so from the brainstorming moment where kind of John accepted to work with you, how long did it take before you started even filming?
Oh, 2 years?
Yeah. It takes so much time, doesn't it?
Years,
Yeah.
yes.
And I mean, how tight was the script by the time you started filming? Like it was like done, no more changes. Yeah.
It was tight, but then you go into the editing room after filming, and then you still rearrange things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of crew did you have? I mean, was it like a bigger production, or you guys really film on quite a tight budget?
Super tight budget. I just found partners, so got all the gear free, um, and the props, so that helped a lot. And then it was, we had 15,000 to shoot, and you take out, I mean, you probably know, but you take out insurance money and locations, and it goes super fast.
Yeah, $15,000 is like nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
I do love the energy in this town though, because there's a lot of like guerrilla filmmaking. Like there's a lot of people who are just scrapping $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 together, trying to make like features and shorts, and everyone's just trying to get their kind of calling card out into the ecosystem. I think it's
Sure.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have called this production we did guerrilla, because I did guerrilla production before to me, and it was really with nothing, like literally. This had a bit more to it, because again, if you put in the amount of money I saved with the gear and the props, I mean, it's the actual value of the production was a lot bigger than that. But we had a lot of volunteers helping out, so
that's great. And where did you end up filming it? Like, where was your locations?
Leimert Park in LA.
Okay, I haven't been there.
In a house.
Okay.
It was a house, an apartment.
That's great.
And a studio in Anaheim.
Oh, okay. And how long was the final product?
It's close to 16 minutes.
Okay. And what have you done with this, body of work? Like where did you want to share it with the world?
Well, first we're doing festivals. So we premiered it in New York in the fall. And now we have the LA premiere next week, actually, April 7th, as part of the Pasadena Film Festival.
Okay.
And then we have another screening at the Beverly Hills Film Festival at the Chinese Theater in May.
Oh, wow. So all the festivals are ramping up now.
Well, we'll see what comes next.
And what's it like trying to get, your short film into all these different festivals? I mean, is it a difficult process? Are people
difficult? I mean, it's, again, and we have a heavy drama. We wanted to do something that would have an impact, the social impact. But I'm not sure dramas are the best right now. So people need to laugh.
I love laughing too, yeah. But
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's nice to tackle some difficult topics. So it does tackle a difficult topic of mental health.
Very timely, because everyone since COVID has lost a little. Yeah,
that's why we wanted to address it. And I used to struggle with mental health as a teenager, so that's kind of what we addressed. But again, we tried to approach it in a way that wouldn't be too off-putting to people. So it's a drama, mystery, horror, a little bit, tiny. But yes, so hopefully people get sucked into the story.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice. But it's like a realistic kind of story. It's not like an over-the-top kind of like fantasy of this drama. Yeah.
Fantasy, no.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to come. We'll have to figure out how to get to see it, because it's gonna be in LA and Pasadena soon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next week. Well, it's screening in North Hollywood at the Laemmle Theater.
Okay. And what's the title of the film?
Haunted.
Jesus.
But it's not the haunted that you're used to.
Yeah. Not Scream 8. No. Just haunted by our own thoughts.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
It's more like a psychological. I don't think it's a thriller, but it's got some aspects of it.
Yeah. So, okay, so you finish filming. I mean, you're editing it, you're putting it all together, and so what's the goal of pushing it through the festival circuit? Like, is the goal to kind of get an agent and maybe sell it on to have some kind of theatrical release? Or because it's a short film, is there only really the festival circuit and then maybe some awards?
Yeah, awards that can help you sell the movie to streamers or some TV channels. Yes, we'll see.
Because the market for short films is probably pretty small because
It's very small,
yeah.
yes. So it's more like a showcase piece, really. Yes, that's the main thing, and then the extra would be to sell it.
So that's nice. So you kind of wrote this as a showcase piece for yourself. Now it's out in the festivals circuit. Have the reviews been good so far?
Well, we haven't had reviews so far.
Oh, Pasadena's the first.
Well, we had New York, but we didn't. It was a very small festival, so there wasn't any press there. Pasadena will have press, and Beverly Hills too.
Okay. Yeah, the Beverly Hills one will be huge.
Yeah, I hear.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
All the press are here anyways. But I'm just curious, like, when you could release a short film and then somehow use that release of the short film to start getting more work because of that. Like what, like,
Who knows?
yeah.
I wish I could like give you a step by step, but like this industry is so unpredictable. Sometimes you get work that comes out of nowhere. It's just, and sometimes you do something and then nothing comes. So there's no rule.
Yeah, I know. I remember I did that 10 episode series in 1 year, which was huge, a lot of work. And then when it all came out the next year, I was like, look at my beautiful 10 episode series. Like I went to all these other broadcasters and even the streamers here, and I was like, I just did this. And everyone was like, we don't care. Like, I was like, okay, I'll start again, I guess. So we have to keep going. And then, yeah. And then next thing you know, something amazing will come out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell.
Would you like to keep making like short films, or is this kind of like your one-off calling card for your, as a showcase, or would you go through the process again?
There's another short film, a comedy that I would love to do, which is, I told you, it's a die of social media. But no, I don't want to keep making short films. I mean, usually people want to do features and TV, work in TV. So yes, obviously it's, I'd rather do something else, but I enjoy the filmmaking process, and maybe at some point I'll want to write a feature as well. We'll see.
That's interesting. Yeah, because it's and would you based on the experience you've had making your short film, where you were so involved in the writing and the acting in it, and then now also to producing and getting it out into the world, do you think you would want to do that same level of involvement on a feature film?
No.
No?
No way.
It was too much?
It was, honestly,
it was too emotional? Yeah.
No. The problem is that the director had a medical emergency the day before we started shooting, so I was left with no director.
Oh my God.
And
was he okay?
have emergency surgery. He was fine. He recovered, and 24 hours later he was on set. But it kind of, you can imagine how well I could prepare for the acting. It was just a disaster. So yeah, it was really, really tough. And other things. And then we got a call, and the key grip had COVID, and then something else happened. Anyways, and I was driving the truck as well with all the gear around LA, got lost. It was really, really hard.
That sounds like I would want to watch the behind the scenes of the making of your.
God, I'm not sure. Maybe more dramatic than the film itself.
Yeah. That's amazing though. So you're just driving the truck with all the gear in it from location to location.
That's when I got the call from the director. I had just picked up the gear, was on my way to the first location to set everything up, and I get the call
that he's in the hospital.
That he has to go to hospital and have surgery.
Oh my God. Wow, that's intense. Because once you start shooting, you really can't stop. Like the cost, the cost of stopping is impossible.
Yes. Yes. And also when you've built a project with someone, like we co-wrote it, like he prepped everything, we rehearsed, and doing it with someone else was just impossible to me, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that do you think, I mean, you don't have to answer if you don't want, but do you think his illness or his emergency was caused by the stress of leading up to the first day of filming?
No, not at all. He's super experienced. It's just happened this way.
Okay. Because sometimes like it can be terrifying.
No. I mean, it's someone, we're talking about someone who's done classic movies like Copycat, Entrapment, and more recently TV shows, The Walking Dead. I mean, a bunch of them really. The Borgias, lots. So
he wasn't nervous.
No. Well, I mean, a creative is always nervous, so it's not like he was totally relaxed before starting a project. But no, it's not what caused it.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well that's good news that he ended up being okay. So
Well, that's
yeah, and it's amazing that he was only out for 24 hours.
he's got an incredible energy, that's for sure. And in that sense, we were lucky to get him back.
And how so you only really missed what 24 48 hours of production time.
24 hours. Someone covered for some of the shots the first day.
And how many days did the filming go for the short?
4.5 days.
Oh wow, that's intense.
Very.
Yeah. That is intense. Like 4.5, what, like 20-hour days just to get.
No, not we kept it reasonable.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That sounds like a lot of fun. And
Not.
no,
To me, it wasn't at all.
why? Because what you're normally
It was just like this last minute incident was just like,
too much.
yes, it was too much.
Wow. Okay. So would you, if you had a chance to like be associated with other projects in the future, would you prefer just to be an actress?
Oh, always. I mean, you can focus on the work better. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But I think depending on the part, you can combine directing and acting better because they're both creative activities. That production thing sets you in a, like you use different parts of your brain with production, and it's I find it harder to go from acting to producing. Like you have an emergency, like it's logistics, yes, but it's also solving crisis. And when, I mean, when someone comes to you right before take and tells you, oh, we need to sort this out like quickly, and
Yeah, it takes you right out of your headspace.
yes,
Yeah.
you got to do a few takes.
To get back into the rhythm. No, I never thought of that because
Yes.
my shows were nonfiction. So when we were producing and directing, and it was just me, right? So
But in front of the camera as well.
yeah,
Okay.
I was hosting the show too. So when I was dealing with like major problems, it was stressful. But when the camera came back on, it was still just me out in nature. I didn't have to like mentally change who I was because that's the
Yeah, you need to get in the zone with acting, and it's difficult to do that when you kept being pulled out of it because of production issues. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, what's your philosophy on acting? Do you have one?
Oh my God. No.
No.
Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Focus and yes, it's about being genuine. I'm not sure what you mean by philosophy.
But just, yeah, how do you go about it? You know, I don't know anything about it. I've never acted.
It's
So,
it's just it's getting into a character's mind, and from there, like everything flows. It's like, but you build. I mean, it's a long process, but it's knowing as much as you can, finding out as much as you can about your character, and then connecting, finding a way to connect emotionally to that character. And but I figured with if you know as much as possible, then it really helps to have a biography of the character, to go back to her childhood, and be as detailed as possible.
yeah, like writing a backstory.
Yes,
Yeah.
big time.
Did you find it easier to act in this role in your current short movie because you also wrote it? Like, because you were kind of writing it for yourself in a lot of ways?
No, it's not. Yes, well, yes, that element definitely helped, but again, the production made it really difficult. So, but in general, it's just, and that's how you get cast as well. It's just getting an acting role to me is about connecting to the part, to the director, and it's a bunch of different things. So sometimes there are texts I read and they touch me in a way that not any other text does. I mean, it's really weird. And some other times you read and you got to really make an effort to try to get to that character, inside that character.
Yeah. Sometimes you find it right away.
Yeah. Yes, it's interesting. But obviously, we did write this character for me, so it was easy. It would have been easier if production hadn't been so challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you learned a lot, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. An incredible amount. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Enough to know that you don't want to do it again?
enough to know that I wouldn't do it in the same conditions. And well, yeah, you learn from your experiences each time. So
Yeah. I feel like every time you go out into the world and create something and then get to share it, you like add a little piece of armor to you where people like have to kind of respect you a little bit more, and then also their criticisms affect you much, much less.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that's called confidence in a way. Like you build confidence, and yeah, you do build an armor. I mean, the challenge with acting is that you don't want to have an armor. You want to take it off.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then when you're vulnerable, people can hurt you.
Yes, yes. So that's an exercise. You need to be, but at the same time, it's like, to me, I try to see the camera as a friend, and the set as a space of freedom, and then you put the armor back on when you're off set.
And put the armor back on when you start sharing it and showing it to everyone at these film festivals.
Yes, I mean, you got to let go at some point. Some people are gonna love it, some people are gonna hate it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
As long as it I think you can to be healthy in your relationship with this business. You're just gonna be healthy with yourself, and then it's all fine, really. I mean, it's not like it's. I would say, and I'm very passionate, but I would say it's just acting. It's not the end of the world. But I am very passionate about it. But I try to put things into perspective.
Yeah, no, you have to, because or else, critics and other people will just eat you alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, if they have fun doing it, great.
I was chatting with another filmmaker a few weeks ago, and we were having this conversation about critics, and we came up with this conclusion that all film and television critics, at the end of their article, I liked it, I didn't like it, blah, 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 they should all put their credits of stories that they've published or told, like not writing. Like if they're a film critic, they should put all the films that they've produced or directed or starred in. And then if they make TV, they should also put a list down there. And then if there's nothing on that list, it's maybe hard to take their criticisms, very seriously, because they have no idea, how this content or how these stories are told, and how much blood, sweat, and tears goes into actually making something for distribution, for commercial distribution.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, it's part of me is thinking, well, is it their problem to know that that there was so much blood and sweat put into it? And also, critics are humans, so they get touched in one way or another. It gets a problem if they're bitter. But that reminds me, there are a few movies I love this year, and then I was reading. My mother was like, "Oh, read this paper, the French paper magazine," and I started to read their cinema section, and they hated all the movies that I loved, and I was so upset. And it's a fairly big magazine, and but it shows, it's and it depends on the angle you take on there. It's again interpretation. So, and it's so subjective.
It can be. I would be a terrible critic because I pretty much love everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I'll respect the time, the effort, the production,
Yeah.
It's very rare that, first of all, it's very rare that like the technical components of filmmaking are bad and the story's bad and the acting's bad, right? So if you break it into like three categories, it's very rare that all three of those things are terrible. So if you do have a bad acting performance or the story falls apart a little bit here, as long as those three things are decent, I can just enjoy being entertained. Like I'm not looking for an opus, like someone's like greatest work ever. Like I just want to be entertained, and some stories will hit you much deeper, but it's still entertainment. And as long as I'm entertained, I'm okay with pretty much anything.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I struggle to watch is horror.
Really? Then you should make a horror movie the way you want it.
Element of
Yeah.
horror, which that part was mostly the director who, co-writer who insisted on having that bit, but then it's the scene that everybody notices.
Mm.
So
I think horror and comedy are both terrifying because you have to like build in the suspense in horror movies, and then in comedy you have to build in the humor and the timing.
comedy I find even tougher
Yeah.
because it depends on your sense of humor. It's so fiddly. It's really hard.
And a lot of days, and especially now, like you can't make jokes the way you could 10 years
There's
ago.
that too.
It's funny, like people were saying like, whatever we talk about today is going to get us in trouble like 10 years from now. And whatever we talked about 10 or 15 years before is already getting us in trouble now. And all of this stuff is on social media for everyone to like scour through. I mean, do you remember, I think Kevin Hart, lost his job hosting the Oscars because of some tweet he made like 10 years ago where he was making some joke about his son, and it was maybe a little bit homophobic or something like that. But he ended up, but someone went through all his tweets and found that from 10 years ago, and then he lost his job hosting the Oscars.
Wow.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
It's the world we live in.
It is the world we live in. So what does it feel like to be a filmmaker now? I mean, you can.
Exciting, actually. I'm looking forward to this year with meeting people as well. Who do the same and connecting and seeing the audience's reception of the film. We'll see.
Yeah. And I mean, are you excited to go and be part of like the festival ecosystem? And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yes, definitely. Yeah.
because everyone's just going to be like, we need you to produce another one from start to finish again.
I'm not sure about that, but it's more about like sharing.
Yeah.
It's always exciting because the prepping process was, not lonely, but at times. So yeah, I mean, when you lead a team, it's always at times a bit lonely. So I'm excited to share now.
Yeah. Because, if the short film is very successful, yeah, people are going to ask you to keep making them.
Maybe not just short films,
That's true. Yeah. But
but I'd rather act, honestly.
yeah,
Just a lot more relaxing. Like, yes, I mean,
you just have to focus on one thing.
exactly.
Yeah. No, yes. Know your lines,
I mean, it's not easy, but that's what I love doing the most.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what does the rest of the year look like for you in terms of promoting? I know you've got a few film festivals. Are you, looking to maybe bring it to France or something like?
Yes,
Yeah.
I submitted it to other festivals in France, so we'll see what happens.
Right. And what's the success rate of like entering a film festival? Like, is it 50-50 or you have no idea?
Depends. Yeah, no, it's not. It's less than 50-50. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of short films out there.
And thousands of film festivals.
Yeah, but the ratio is more. Yeah, it's hard to get in. Yes.
And what do you think? What do you think is allowing you to have this kind of success with the film festivals? Like getting into the Pasadena one, getting into the Beverly Hills one. Those are two big ones for this part of the world.
Again, it's hard to explain and to know why, because we also got refusals, and it was like, oh, the programming doesn't allow us. We got shortlisted a few times, and then it's a matter of what they want to show, what else they have. But we've been really lucky with LA, actually.
Yeah,
in particular.
That's good. I think judging one of those competitions would be miserable. I don't think I could handle like the stress of having to see all this.
Judging filmmaking is just, yeah, I find it really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be it's not an ideal job in any way, shape, or form.
No, but I guess some people love doing it.
Well, it's prestigious, I guess, if you're like, nominated to be the lead judge of the Cannes Film Festival or something. That's quite that's the only, or Sundance maybe, but all the other like super small ones, I don't even know, it's a strange one.
Yes, it is all strange.
Okay, well, so that's amazing. I think we're gonna see, as the technology gets a lot better, I think that a lot of, I think nowadays it is a lot easier for people to like put short films together to showcase their own skills and stuff like that. Because feel like the cost of filmmaking has come down so much in the last 20 years because of the technology and things like that. So it's really nice to see that you built out your own story to showcase your own acting talent as a way of putting yourself out into the world and hopefully, getting more work from it, or at least having some, it's like a business card, right?
Yes, that's the idea. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, you have anything else planned for 2024 other than promoting this film, or are you?
No, just staying open to life.
That's the most important.
Yeah, spending some time in France as well.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much for swinging by. I really appreciated chatting. And so, what are the film festivals that are coming up again in the next little while? And what's the name of the film again?
So the film is called. Now I can't speak anymore. The film is called Haunted, and it's in the Pasadena International Film Festival on Sunday, April 7th at 6 p.m. And that's screening at the Laemmle Theater in NoHo. And then we have the Beverly Hills Film Festival in May 3rd. That's a Friday, and it's screening at 12:30 at the Chinese Theater.
Okay.
12:30 p.m.
So that'll be great. And does the film Haunted have its own like website?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
hauntedtheshortfilm.com.
I'll make sure I add that to the podcast when it goes out. Well, that's great. Well, look, I wish you the best of luck. It's I'm always super impressed when people create their own stories and put it out into the world. So I've got a huge amount of admiration for your creation, and I hope it goes well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now we can go like this where we go wide. And very nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you very much for swinging by. No, it's okay. But look, I can fade to black, so I've got some production quality here as well.
Okay.
And we're out.
Okay, cool.